he died defending a lot of people who, since his death, have revealed themselves to be even worse than what the people Charlie was defending them against had accused them of being.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable betrayal.
Yeah.
Charlie died refusing millions of dollars to disassociate from Tucker.
Yep.
Also that Tucker could go to his funeral and make a hummus eater joke or whatever. Like
and not mention him really since.
And not mention him since.
Yeah.
And allow people on his show, including his brother, to essentially implicate TPUSA and Charlie's friends and family
and his wife
and his wife,
his widow, and his children. It's just it's been difficult to comprehend.
Yes,
actually, the level of evil and self-serving that has been happening in the aftermath of Charlie's death. Hard to process, really, that level of
evil.
But it's a good point about the tent getting too big and bad people getting inside. Of course, a lot of the people were inside, but it's just you don't want to attract, even if they'll vote with you, people who you can't respect.
Yeah.
Well, the president, I didn't vote for him in 2016. I did vote for him in 2020 and in 2024. I've also been more happy than not during this second term. And I've come to appreciate his charm. The president certainly has.
Same, yeah.
He certainly has a charm. But he is not, I've said this before on the show, he's not a moral or ideological leader. He doesn't purport to be. So I'm not, this isn't some accusation.
Right.
He, when he gets up at Charlie's funeral and says, Erica forgives Charlie's killer, I don't. I actually think that is a charming moment.
Yeah.
That's President Trump being the most vulnerable and honest you'll ever see him be. I think in a way he was saying Erica is better than me.
Yeah.
As close as he can get.
I was like, I think I'm more that than I am
Same.
Erica.
Right.
I strive to be Erica, but I'm certainly more Trump in those moments, for sure.
And yet, not a moral or an ideological leader, which means that the Republican Party has essentially been without moral or ideological leadership for a decade. And Donald Trump is not one to disassociate from people who might support him. Donald Trump basically will only disassociate from people who disassociate from Donald Trump. I mean, if you cross him, then he's going to counterpunch. Another charming thing about the president is he doesn't actually seem to hold grudges. He'll punch Megyn Kelly in the mouth in 2016, but then welcome her completely back into the fold in the very next moment. That's actually a real kind of generosity of spirit that you don't often see in people. But again, what it isn't is, it's even a kind of moral leadership. It's a kind of character leadership. But it isn't a moral leadership in the way that we would associate with the president historically, or an ideological leadership in the way that we would associate with the president historically. And so I just think that there isn't anyone in the movement to say what is and what isn't. I think he rightly says MAGA is whatever I say it is.
Right.
I think that's the, truer words were never spoken, but essentially that's just him saying MAGA can't be used as a cudgel against my policy positions.
Yeah.
It's not an actual definition of MAGA. He doesn't set the boundaries of the coalition in any way that empowers anyone else to say, well, this is what we're organized around, and this is what we organize in opposition to. And so in that environment, you really only have J.D. Vance as a potential candidate for that kind of leadership in the movement. And while on one hand, I would defend his appearing on Megyn as at least potentially being coalition-minded, when he does speak out against anyone within the coalition, it's never anyone on that side.
Yeah.
And he can sometimes have very harsh words for people who are on what I would consider a more traditional Republican.
Those words were very harsh this week.
They were very harsh.
Those who had some questions in good faith about the deal, because it was in opposition to what the president had been presenting in terms of his policy towards the regime for his entire lifetime. Going back to like his early days of himself watching the Iranian hostage crisis play out and not liking the weakness that the United States shows. But in terms of personality and morality, I actually have a little bit of a different perspective on Trump. And nobody's going to believe me when I say this, but I think he has a certain humility about him Like, he understands he's a fallen person. He understands he's not perfect. He oftentimes is self-deprecating about the decisions he's made in his personal life. He jokes about, of course I don't drink. Can you imagine if I were a drinker? I would be out of control, kind of thing. I do think that he legitimately understands the difference between right and wrong. And I think when he says, I'm trying to get into heaven, he means it. Like, he believes in God, although he is like anybody else, a person who doesn't always make, moral decisions or whatever. And I think the hostage situation is one of them. Trying to bring people home. He is for justice in society. So I do think he actually has a very clear sense of right and wrong, and a humility about being a broken person like everybody else. Everybody makes mistakes, and if you believe in God and the sin and all that kind of thing. And I think he understands that about himself, but his personality doesn't reflect that all the time, because how could he be the president of the United States if he were in that position constantly?
But ideologically, you're right. He doesn't have that firm ideological bend, and it isn't what does the conservative world stand for under his watch. It's hard to say what we stand for. It's hard to say what the beliefs are right now. And actually, that's why in the first two times to vote for him, I didn't. And I want to be clear, I just didn't vote. I lived in New York. It wasn't like I voted for the Democrats.
Oh, I did worse. I voted for Egmont Muffin the first time.
Oh, me too. Oh, gosh.
So
don't remind me of that.
I'm so ashamed about it.
I wrote him in.
Yeah.
Even worse. Like, oh, that was horrible.
And I actually think it was immoral.
I had to block him.
In retrospect, I think it was immoral, not only because of how he turned out.
Yeah. I blocked him like a month after the election. It was like a really bad scene.
I don't know, though. If you go topic by topic,
yeah,
I think we know a lot about what MAGA stands for.
Well,
or what Republicans
stand for. My thing. So back to what you were saying about Trump, like he loves to be loved, and that is that is what used to really concern me about him, because I thought the Democrats can come in and be like, you are the best, and we want to partner with you on this, and they just could never do it. They had Kim Kardashian figured it out. She went to the White House. She got what she wanted. They could never make it over that hump. And that was my fear, that the Democrats would figure out to be sweet to him and to charm him. And then he would side with them on all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I think we're getting to where you could see what MAGA stands for. But again, the fact that there were people so shocked that he would get into a foreign war means that we don't really know. It's sort of whatever, it could be whatever you want it to be.
I don't mean to say that he's immoral.
Yeah.
He certainly has behaved immorally, but everyone behaves immorally. I mean that he doesn't show moral leadership. But I would never want to be accused of saying that I think that he's like an immoral, that he leads us immorally. That would be a different kind of accusation. And I also agree that we do know what MAGA stands for the closer to the center of MAGA you get.
Yeah.
It's when you get to the outer limits of what MAGA is that it starts to fall apart. He hasn't set the outer boundary, which I agree is why some people were shocked that he engaged in a foreign conflict. I don't think it was surprising that he would engage in a foreign conflict at all. And I think it's why we can't decide if there's room for the sort of anti-Semitism that we're seeing, or the sort of, I believe, actual anti-Americanism that's really prevalent.
That's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was asked recently, I'm often asked to speak on behalf of Ben Shapiro. I can't get away from it. I was asked last week by someone fairly prominent, what do you think is the biggest thing that Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro disagree about? I mean, at the end of the day, isn't it just Israel? I said, no, the biggest thing that Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro agree about is America. Israel is like the wedge, but America is the disagreement. Tucker Carlson engages in the same kind of revisionist anti-Americanism that you see on the far left. It organizes itself around a different set of grievances.
Yeah.
But that's the only distinction. If the left believes that, the second half of the world, the second half of the 20th century was America exporting around the world, capitalist greed and warmongering, and, Tucker agrees that we were exporting something evil around the world. He just thinks that what it is was like globo homo and the homogenization of cultures and the sexual deviancy that accompanied that. But there's not a disagreement on a sort of fundamental level that America was the bad guy during that period of time.
Right. And also,
Maybe during World War II.
free
World War II.
market, free market for
rewriting
sure.
World War
Free-
II is
I mean,
crazy.
I think
The first time I saw them ever disagree, Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, was Ben asking Tucker, would you ban self-driving trucks in order to save the jobs? And Tucker said, of course I would. And I was like, what? What are we talking about here?
That was 2018. Tucker said it in my office, and then on the show, the same conversation sort of played out organically, and then set it back up on air. And what Tucker actually, the follow-up question was, on what basis would you ban self-driving cars? The president doesn't have that kind of authority. And he said, safety. And I said, well, but I think the premise is that self-driving cars would be safer. If we didn't have them back then, if we ever achieve autonomous driving, it'll be safer than human driving. And he said, well, you didn't ask me what's true. You asked me on what basis I would justify outlawing self-driving cars. And from that moment, from 2018 forward, Ben and I often said to one another that Tucker was the most dangerous man in American politics, not because he would lie for power. Anyone might lie for power under certain circumstances. To your point, all of sin and fall short of the glory of God is kind of like a core Christian concept. Like the idea that Trump is flawed should come as no surprise. Yeah. Everyone's flawed. Anyone might lie for power. Anybody might lie for money. Anybody might lie to keep from getting caught in some sin. Tucker wasn't being like self-effacing or admitting to human frailty. He was saying, like, with a kind of boldness, no, I would lie for power. That's much different than saying, I mean, sure, I might lie for power. That's not a plan. That's an acknowledgement of something that's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I think what Tucker was doing was different than that. And I think we've seen that.
There's no guilt of the
There's
line.
no guilt. Yeah.
The
Right.
ends
It's like
justify the ends justify the means.
Yeah.